society that we grow up in and we live in profits off of everything.
My name is Shay. I'm in telecommunications. I work in Queens.
I think that freedom is a word that captures it for a lot of people.
These are going against women's rights now. They're trying to give us only 6 weeks maternity leave instead of 12. So we don't have any time to groom and to get to know our children. Therefore, we're not building a generation of productive people who are compassionate.
This fight is about freedom for all living things. I think that the underlying struggle we're dealing with right now is we need to divide between those things that are inherently real and living and those things that are not, that are fiat or fake.
Showing my solidarity for working people, of which myself, and trying to make a difference and move the climate towards a good direction for working people around the country.
This is the occupation of Wall Street. We're involved in taking back the street from the 1%ers and bringing it back to the 99%.
I'm here to take back Wall Street. My stance is on behalf of the students and being projected by the student-owned companies.
Here because I don't think that the wealthy are accountable to the rest of the society that they interact with.
It's good to be a part of this group because though we all have different opinions, the vision is almost unified. We want change.
It's a statement of aversion to the modern context that is global capitalism.
The reasons that we hear are many, and everyone has a different perspective on it that's unique. What it boils down to for me, whether we're talking about the injustices of the environment, the rainforest dying, the oceans dying, the animals experiencing suffering in their lives, or we're discussing the healthcare system, or the prison system, or the school system, which is similar to the prison system. It boils down to separation and, yeah, exploitation by those at the top.
Just basically, we need help out of all of these situations, and I think that being fair is the answer, not one person having more than the other. I just think being fair is the right answer.
I came to this particular demonstration because I come from what, when I was growing up, would have been considered an upper middle class family, and my family is very, very dear to me because they're people. My mother and father are the reason why I can be here, always. They're the reason I can do anything. They deserve a great deal of thanks. However, they come from an idea that militarization is good, an idea that Christianity is the only religion, an idea that the American dream is law. And when I branched off into activism, they were disheartened in some way. But when I branched off into activism, I brought my family with me because this struggle is about opening their eyes so that they can see that they are a part of this struggle, whether they like it or not. Whether they choose to continue to watch the same news programs and not open their minds to new ideas, they are a member of this struggle. This is everyone.
1% of the country owns approximately 40% of the wealth, and then the next 19% owns another 40% of the wealth. So the bottom 80% of the country only owns around 20% of the wealth of the country. And those are the people who are actually working and creating everything that we actually need to live.
I feel like this has an opportunity to evolve into something very pure and something very natural. And if I didn't stay and if I didn't partake in it, it's probably something I would always think about. You know, maybe we would have had a chance to really make a difference in the world we live in, because in every aspect of the world, there's something to be said of it. That it's either it's wrong or it's flawed, it's devolved, it's all these things. And I'm faced with it all the time, and I'm a very sensitive person, which is why I'm vegan, but I'm very sensitive to all the issues. And there's too many, and they're too broad, and they're across the world, they're across ages and gender and races. So you can't even narrow it down to just one concern. It's really just a general idea that we want to change the system of the world that we're living in.
People are protesting Wall Street, but it's really, I think, the paradigm through which we're like approaching economics in general, which is really it's dehumanizing and it's really exploitative of almost everybody. I feel like it's even dehumanizing for the people at top, to be honest. Even though they might reap these massive economic rewards, I think it's the whole system is insane. And so I think that this is just a statement of camaraderie with other people that recognize that insanity and that want to say like that they're not comfortable with it and that they don't want it to continue.
We've seen and we're experiencing, a backlash against people, whose feet are on the street on a daily basis, trying to make a living. And while we were out on strike over the summer, I was telling people, I said, look, this movement that started out in Wisconsin is gradually making its way up here into New York, and it's not going to happen. So, we have to keep this thing going. And for people out here to literally occupy space in the name and honor of fellow working people, I'm out here to support that because I'm no different than anybody else out here.
We have an unequal distribution of resources, wealth, love, all of those things. And I think that is true in our families and on a much larger global family.
I know quick exits. My name is Rafael Barrios, and I'm trying to fight this Wall Street, what's going on here. I'm trying to give it an option. I'm trying to get all the unions, workers together.
I just want to talk a little bit about why
this is a very small percentage of people making the majority of the decisions that govern the majority of our lives. So what's most important to me and what's really been fruitful about this is media coverage. As many American households revolve around television, and many protests and demonstrations do not get covered by mass media. And so seeing Fox News and CNN here has been tremendous, because this needs to reach the country. This needs to reach America on the whole. America is really the creator of rampant individualism and the self before the other, as opposed to my neighbor before myself.
What I really hope is that people will just examine the fundamental reasons that people are coming here. Like the real core of the issue. With it's really all based on economy. And I really hope that people would look at that themselves and then for themselves figure out if it's something that they care about, and if in this context, if that's something that they feel like is important. For me, it is important. It is important to be around other people that are also identifying this as an insanely destructive system. I think that localization of politics, localization of economy, that is the step that needs to be taken. People need to recognize their autonomy and the power that they have over their own lives, and then also have that extrapolate within the community. And I think that communities should be governing, you know, the way that things happen in those communities. So there's an accountability towards, you know, political and social and whatnot.
It's all part of, you know, the movement of just extorting, you know, labor and effort out of the working people to benefit, you know, that proverbial 1% or the rich, the ruling class, so to say. So it's no different. They're all tools that are used to divide us and, you know, to extort, you know, ultimately our labor.
Leader of the movement for revolution in this country is chairman of the Revolutionary Communist Party. Okay, so he's, you know, he's not fooling around. No, not at all.
Socialism, you know, we need actual socialism. We need the means of production to be owned by the workers of the world. No one really disagrees with that except for the people who have all the money. So this is about making the 99% bigger and more important.
Well, we marched earlier today. I think that'll happen again. There's also some stretching of the body and the mind with meditation and yoga, which I think brings consciousness to a whole new level. So there's a lot of energy here, and we've all been thinking about a lot of these issues for a long time.
What I see when I look at humanity today is complete oppression. It's oppression across the board. There are very, very, very few people who have power over an enormous mass of people, and it's so deeply rooted in this system, and it's been going on for so long and growing for so long without people stepping away from a television set or a radio or their computer and acknowledging that life is around them and that they are life. I think that we are all in the same boat.
I'm curious about, you have a cigarette in your hand.
Yeah.
What's in that cigarette?
It's coltsfoot, comfrey, singing nettles, yerba buena, and mullein. They're all herbs. There's so many reasons not to smoke tobacco. There's health-related reasons. Also, just the fact that tobacco that you're going to buy generally in this country, the accessible tobacco, it's all from these monolithic corporations that are basically they're horrible for the environment. Any massive scale monoculture farm is going to be horrible for the environment. But not to mention that, but like the socioeconomic tact of these companies like Philip Morris is just like appalling. So I wouldn't want to support that.
When we talk about food, it's very easy for the activism community to acknowledge that human beings are living things and that we waste in this country 1/3 of the food that we produce. What we fail to consider is that much of that wasted food is something's life. An animal's life has been eliminated for the sake of producing food that perpetuates this mechanism of waste. And part of the cause of overproduction is that the human race does not care about the mass genocide of animals. Come from the earth. Everything has come from the earth, and we are all a member of the same family. The impositions that we've placed on top of the earth are what has divided us from each other and from understanding that a whale is your sister in the same way as your sister is your sister, in the same way as a stranger on the street is your sister, is your brother. We're trapped in this Darwinian notion of survival of the fittest, that we must be the absolute species. But we are not the absolute species. We are not the top species. No species is the top species.
The meat industry and the animal exploitation industry are two of the worst industries for not only the animals that are involved in it, but the people who work in it too. There are these people that just came out who their job is to push the brains out of pigs so that Spam can put it into their containers, and these people have been getting massive health concerns for years. This goes back to Upton Sinclair, back to the 1920s. The Jungle was written 90 years ago now, and almost nothing's changed in the meatpacking industry. So it very much is a solidarity movement with all other forms of anti-capitalist protests.
In terms of the exploitation of the workers and the suffering.
The exploitation of the animals, the fact that these companies that you're almost certainly buying from tend to be incredibly corrupt companies, both to their employees and to the world at large. Monsanto, ConAgra, these businesses are the worst.
The handful is telling you how to live and how to eat is definitely one thing they tell you to do. You know, there's meat all over the place, and I always wonder, there's meat in every restaurant, in every store. If I wanted to eat a steak every day for the rest of my life, it would not be a problem, and that really freaks me out, because there's no way that there's just no way that should be possible, because how many creatures have to be slaughtered for that to be possible? And the fact that they tell us, you know, that this is something that is appropriate for us to eat, that we're meat eaters. I've been vegan since I was 15. I made the choice, and I'm 23 now. I hope we reach a point in our civilization, in our society, where we look back on these times and think, how did we do that? How did we think that was okay? How did we live with ourselves? And, you know, I hope we look back on it and see it as like a modern Holocaust. You know, and I think maybe it's possible.
Occupy Wall Street all day, all week. Occupy Wall Street all day, all week. Occupy Wall Street all day, all week.
Why are you not eating dead animals or dairy or eggs?
It's toxic, and apparently it steals calcium from our bodies, and it's the wrong way to go about things.
So
they feel pain too, for compassion reasons. Do you farm? Do you grow your own?
No, I don't.
That would also help, because...
Do you do that?
I kind of, a little bit, but I want to get more into it. Yeah,
stuff like that, like a little garden,
yeah.
small garden.
Yeah.
On your roof, or?
Yeah, on my roof.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. But you do grow tomatoes? Do you too?
We need to be more independent.
Okay.
We need to be self-sufficient and independent. That's another thing that would just deregulate the power these companies have. Shooting. Did you see how they treat the little chickens and the cows, and how they raise them in these poor conditions, and inject them with hormones to have to be, what is it? They sped up the process
of growing.
Yeah, so growing in the houses, and then they said feed them what they're not supposed to be eating. Exactly. It's terrible. Just so they can be larger and sell for, you know, more. It's not good. It's insane, but it takes people like you and I to stop this, right?
Yes.
The madness.
Yeah.
And to stand up for. Yesterday we had amazing veggie burger, and it was delicious. I told her, she mixed it in, cooked it perfectly, but onions and everything. Yeah, I love it. I think we just all need to take responsibility.
Vegan because I feel that I'm accountable to the world I live in. I'm accountable to the rest of my society, and you know, we've grown to such a large extent that it's not a sustainable existence without a vegan diet for any length of time. Beyond that, ethically, you know, how can you as a human being be willing to let something suffer just so you can eat? How can you let someone suffer to grow your wealth? You know, isn't it just as a society, you should try to take the path of least harm. You should try.
99% of the wealth is
to exist as peacefully as possible.
Can I take my bag?
Exploiting animals and approaching animals as something that should be commodified and exploited for profits or for pleasure, for taste and stuff. It's kind of a disgusting way of approaching any living thing, and I think that basically economics and global capitalism approaches people and resources and other species in that way. So I think that it's the entire approach, that whole paradigm of profits being of the utmost concern. It's a insane paradigm, and I think that it applies completely with the way that capitalism treats and commodifies all living things. I'm disgusted with it as a whole.
And though, even the most optimistic person finds beauty in everything, which is what I try my best to do, I still can't help but be sensitive again for the creatures that we mistreat, whether it's an animal or if it's a human.
I've been vegetarian for 2.5 years and have been vegan for some of that time.
Would you consider eliminating the cruelty, the violence, the exploitation involved with dairy and eggs, fish, leather, etc.?
Yes, and I think that one of the major ways that's going to happen is the recognition that when we make that choice to do so, we're choosing to reduce suffering in the world.
In terms of making the choice between vegan and vegetarian, I'm just underinformed. However, the more that you push in the struggle for activism and for human rights, the more you have to acknowledge that we are all living things. We are all living beings. A domesticated animal should have the same rights as a human being, should probably not be domesticated, and this fight is about freedom for all living things.
I don't isolate my feelings about animals as like a specialized, I care about animal rights or animal liberation as a specialized thing. No, because I care about the entirety of the context. It's the exact same issue. The globalization of capitalism and the way that economy works. Animals are commodified and exploited in the same way that people or resources are. I think that the resources of this planet, they belong to everything that exists on the planet.
If you're against the capitalist industry, I think that it makes a lot of sense to become a vegan.
I think everyone's very comfortable, and that's another thing why I'm here. I want to kind of leave the comfort zone and experience something that I know is possible, which is living organically with a bunch of people I've never met on the street because we believe that there's a possibility for a change, a very positive change. I feel that people really go out of their way to feel different than one another than seeing that underneath all the layers we're the same. And I think when we realize that, the world is just one home that we're sharing that's being loaned to us. The world is just something we're borrowing from our children. And that's very profound because it's true, and we're given this place to experience something.
General Assembly starting.
What about the planet?
Oh, of course. It's one of the greenest things that you can do, immediately lighten your carbon footprint. Especially if you eat local. Something that's unfortunate is that the system that we're born into makes us evil just by living. And in order to, combat that, one of the easiest things you can do is become a vegan.
I am, vegan and animal friendly and all those things, and I feed every stray I've ever met. But at the same time, I live in a society, that tore down a forest just to build this city, or I live in a city that doesn't think twice about taking a tree down to make a power line. So, I support that just by living here. So I do feel like I am part of the we, though I don't agree with it. And that's another thing, they made all the decisions for us. I didn't make the decision, and I want to make a decision, and I like to have my voice here.
I attribute the government is basically a corporation. It's so interworking. It's really just the top 1% serving the top 1%'s interest. And now you have military might. You have all these different things that basically enable the government, and it actually is interchangeable. You take the cabinet of the government. You know what I'm saying? It's actually interchangeable with the corporation. What I'm here for, my values, the most prominent theme is a sense of camaraderie and empathy and understanding of you know, of all things on this planet. And yeah, I think it would be a huge discredit to the actual reality as I see it to try and isolate that as a human rights thing versus an animal rights thing, when really it's a lack of respect is what we're dealing with for all things, and that's what I'm here in aversion to. That's what I want to fight.
Like corporations.
All day, all week, Occupy Wall Street. 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 All day, all week, Occupy Wall Street.
Young people, supporting the young people.
I believe in activism for animals' rights. You change your diet, you change your mind completely. So I've been just really transformed. You know, I've experienced a little bit of my own enlightenment the more I got into it. Vegetarianism, veganism, and now I'm really out there, you know, with my diet. It's changed a lot about my life personally. The sooner we see how unified we are as a race, the sooner we'll see we're unified as a whole Earth. And the creatures are included in that. And it's not just the creatures that we consume, it's the creatures that we enslave. Many of this back.
Send hummus and peanut butter. People are hungry. And come down.
I think that what emerges from this place is a combination of all the wisdom that we each have, no doubts.
Occupy Wall Street. We're going to be here for a long time, so come on down.